Hello again, traveler. My name is Korg the Mighty. It is currently 4:16 a.m. on the eastern coast. I lost all feeling in my body 5 hours ago, and I have a nice cold glass of milk to keep me company. Welcome back to... This is a series where I go over the general vibes and traits of each lineage within the Forgotten Realms. If you haven't seen part 1, please do so you're all caught up here. As stated in part 1, after Wizards of the Coast released the initial 5th edition Player's Handbook for Dungeons & Dragons, they would go on to add many more source books and many more lineages from there. Like around 51 more, specifically. The job was easy, I wouldn't be doing it. Today we're moving on from the first 9 that we covered in part 1 and moving on to a group known as the Exotic lineages. Many of these lineages possess increasingly unique and creative traits, which might be confusing to some new players, but once you get the hang of it, they are very fun. Quick disclaimer, we will be going over the most updated versions of these lineages, some in their original form, some re-released. As always, general stats will be listed on screen. And most importantly, don't feel pressured to play what I say. The info that I cover is a general overview of each lineage, but that does not in any way have to dictate your character's specific personality. Just because the Grey Dwarves are eternally depressed doesn't mean that your Grey Dwarf has to be. Ready? Good. Let's talk some birds.
Everybody's heard about the bird.
The Aarakocra, lithe, unburdened, and a bit of a superiority complex. Their special trait? Being able to stop time for exactly 9 seconds. I'm just kidding, it's flying. They're birds. It kinda comes with the territory. Most Aarakocra prefer to live like and on the wind, spending much of their lives flying high above the clouds. They actually don't subscribe to ideas like personal property, material wealth, or political boundaries. A lot just take what they need and move on. However, it is stated specifically that they, quote, look down on ground-based races with pity. They don't like landing on the ground, and they have a distaste for lineages that live underground like the dwarves. Most also have a bit of claustrophobia. They don't like tight spaces very well. So yeah, air great, ground not so much. I'm sorry the rest of us weren't descended from Big Bird, okay? Real talk, we all know he would be a barbarian class. Their special trait though is very good. Because of your wings, you have a flying speed equal to your walking speed, which is very great since most of us peasants are stuck to the ground. Common applications include making it harder for enemies to hit you, flying to higher spots, and making combat absolute hell for your DM as they constantly have to try and figure out where you are in space and time. Flying on the wind not good enough? Well, you can kind of control it as well. Windcaller gives you the Gust of Wind spell at 3rd level, which essentially turns you into an airbender for 6 seconds once per long rest. And finally, give the most uncomfortable handshakes ever with your talons. Your hands are natural weapons, able to deal 1d6 plus your strength modifier in slashing damage. Final verdict? That's a free bird right there.
To f around is human. To find out is divine.
Descended from celestial beings or mere mortals touched by the powers of the heavens, the Aasimar are essentially angel people, each of which carry a spark of the upper planes within their very souls. Aasimar are very fun to play, in my opinion, because the idea of being like an ascended angel person or a fallen dark angel, you just can't beat that. They also have a ton of abilities which are just, oh my god, literally, my god, their god, your god. Their primary special trait is called Celestial Revelation. Once per long rest, you can channel the celestial energy inside of your body and use it to transform into a more angelic being with a grab bag of powers for 1 minute. You get to use it at level 3, and you get to pick from 3 flavors. Flavor 1 is called Radiant Consumption, which forces searing light to temporarily radiate from your eyes and your mouth. Anybody within 10 feet of you takes radiant damage every turn, and you can channel extra radiant damage into an attack once per turn. You basically become a mini sun for a minute, and this isn't even my favorite. Number 2 is Radiant Soul, which also lets you channel a little bit extra radiant damage into one attack, but instead of that 10-foot radiant thing, you get a set of luminous spectral wings that allow you to fly. Hey, you're gonna look down on us? Can you fire the sun out of your hands? Didn't think so. But my favorite, without a doubt, is number 3, the Necrotic Shroud. I mean, do I actually have to list out the abilities by that point? I'm gonna do it anyways. Your eyes become pools of darkness. You gain ghostly, flightless wings, which are only there for the aesthetic. Anybody within 10 feet of you must roll to prevent themselves from becoming frightened of you, and you can deal extra necrotic damage once per turn. Necrotic Shroud Aasimar are the epitome of fallen angels brought to the mortal plane to reap what they sow. And bear in mind, your Celestial Revelation is not your only ability. As an Aasimar, you automatically know the Light Cantrip thanks to your Light Bearer trait. You can also use your Heavenly Power to heal a creature once per long rest with your Healing Hands. And finally, you are resistant to both necrotic and radiant damage. Putting it all together, you can have a gothic fallen angel walking across a battlefield, half of your foes fleeing in terror as you fire out a bolt of purple necrotic energy. At the same time, you lean down to heal an ally, and when an opposing cultist fires off a blast of searing radiant energy, you shrug it off like it's nothing. Final verdict: my god, your god, our god, bow down.
It could be in this very room. It could be you. It could be me.
Touched by the Fae, this time we have the Changelings, a group that is often as morally gray as their skin. The thing is, if you lived in the Forgotten Realms, you might not even know that this is what Changelings look like. You might not even know that Changelings are a thing, even if one was standing right next to you. This is because of their special trait, which is essentially just being Mystique from the X-Men movies. Thanks to their Shape Changer trait, Changelings have the ability to copy the appearance and voice of almost anyone. You can adjust things like your height, weight, skin color, hair length, and pretty much anything except your number of limbs. You can't have any Changelings with 10 limbs walking around, although that would be cool. Couple other stipulations. Your clothing and equipment remain unaffected by this, so if you are currently dressed as a clown, you will remain as such, and you cannot mimic the appearance of someone you have not seen before. To become Ryan Reynolds, one must first gaze upon Ryan Reynolds. Changelings are known to use their abilities to create multiple personas and masks that they can put on to blend in with various societies, preferring in many cases to keep their identities hidden. It can be great for things like espionage, performance, playing a prank on that mean Ken Jean up the street who keeps throwing rocks at you. Final verdict: the Fae scare me.
Welcome to the underground. How was the fall?
Next up, we got the
Deep Gnomes.
Most Deep Gnomes are natives of a place called the Underdark, which, in case you didn't know, is a place that is both dark and under a lot of dirt. I didn't get my degree in geology for nothing. Jokes aside, the Underdark is actually an entirely different area of the D&D world. It's described as a vast network of underground caverns and tunnels located far beneath the surface. Many lineages, like the dwarves for example, can make their homes here. It is dangerous though, also housing things like beholders and driders. Ew. Gross. And after many, many years of living in the Underdark, the Deep Gnomes have become suffused with its magic. Take your stereotypical professional Minecraft miner and then multiply that by an entire species. Yeah, that's what we're kind of dealing with here. Their special ability? That one scene in Lord of the Rings where they hide under Frodo's cloak and it looks like a rock. Using their camouflage, they've learned how to hide much easier in their natural environment. You got dark vision. Be pretty rough if you didn't. And you have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws against spells. Finally, you got your gift of this pass, which gives you the disguise self spell at level 3 and the non-detection spell at level 5. You can use each once per day. Final verdict? It's not a boulder, it's a gnome. Speaking of boulders,
Tonight's top story: everything is awful.
the Duergar, otherwise known as the Grey Dwarves, otherwise known as the dwarf version of the Deep Gnomes, because they all live in the same place and their ability layouts are pretty similar. But their backgrounds, oh boy, night and day. So you got the Deep Gnomes, right? Like, they're living in a kind of dangerous place, but they've been able to make it out pretty alright. The Grey Dwarves, not so much. They were fine when they got there, but after a while they got invaded by a bunch of mind flayers and other aberrations. Mind flayers, let me tell you, not a thing you want to get too intimate with. They got all these psychic powers. They also have tentacles on their face, so their morning breath is pretty bad. And they performed horrible horrifying experiments on the Grey Dwarves for, like, I don't know, centuries? Like, it was bad. The Grey Dwarves were thankfully able to do a rebellion, and it went much better than when the Elves tried to do the same thing against the Giants, thanks in no small part to their special trait, having minds made of rocks, aka your psionic fortitude. See, after so many years of being psychically tortured by the Mind Flayers, the Grey Dwarves actually built a resistance to it. Now all of them have advantage on saving throws to avoid or cancel being charmed or stunned. They also got that sweet, sweet Underdark magic, which gives them the Enlarge/Reduce spell at level 3 and the Invisibility spell at level 5. Finally, they're resistant to poison stuff, because are you really a dwarf if you can't have a poison drinking contest? I think not. Final verdict, they deserve a happy everything.
Oh, don't be ridiculous, Andrea. Everybody wants this.
It's the day of the Fae right now. So elves, right? You know how they're descendants of the Fae? Well, the Eladrin are elves that live in and directly come from the Fae wild. And oh my, do their traits really nail that home. I'm gonna quickly speedrun through their other traits, because their main trait, if you thought Aasimar's gave you options, oh no. First, trance. You only have to sleep 4 hours a night. If only. Second, keen senses. You get a boost to your perception skill. Third, dark vision, because why not? Fourth, Fey ancestry. You can't be charmed as easily. And that's all before their primary trait, which is walking. But like Fey walking. So you know there's gonna be some magic bull. The Fey step is your primary ability. As a bonus action, you can magically teleport 30 feet away to an unoccupied space that you can see. You can use this trait a number of times, equal to what's called your proficiency bonus, which is another stat, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. However, at level 3, your Fey step gains an extra ability that happens every time you use it, and that ability is determined by your season. We didn't talk about seasons, did we? Brief cutaway. So essentially there are 4 types of Eladrin, each corresponding with a specific season, autumn, winter, so on. Whatever season you choose kind of impacts your personality and aesthetic. So like spring Eladrin are very happy and cheerful most times, while summer Eladrin are more so bold and daring. Some Eladrin change their season over time, some remain one season forever, and that's really up to you. However, your season dictates your second Fey step ability, so let's quickly go through those. Autumn. Whenever you Fey step, 2 creatures within 10 feet of you that you choose both roll a wisdom saving throw. If they fail, they are considered charmed. Winter. Choose 1 creature within 5 feet of you to make a roll. If they fail, they are frightened. Spring. You can make another willing creature within 5 feet of you teleport away instead of you. Finally, summer. Each creature of your choice within 5 feet of you takes a bit of fire damage. Final verdict, I tried to warn you about the Fae in the last video. They will mess you up. I also hear they give good hugs though, so maybe that's nice. I gotta catch my breath after that. Who's up next? Someone not Fae related, I hope.
In my world, everyone's a pony, and they all eat rainbows and poop butterflies.
Okay, thankfully, fairies, a lot more simple to explain. They're actually probably one of the most simple on this list. Because, I mean, when you look at a fairy, what do you think they're going to have? You think you're going to have a few fairy spells and be able to fly? You're golden. So like Aarakocra, fairies have a flying speed equal to their walking speed. Their fairy magic gives them the Druidcraft cantrip, the Fairy Fire spell at level 3, and the Enlarge/Reduce spell at level 5. And there's not much more. I really wish there was more. Fairies seem like they could have a lot of interesting cultural information. But from what I can find, that's about it. They are a relatively new lineage, so it's kind of understandable, but yeah, final verdict, they are small, and so is their lore, apparently. P.S. If you know more fairy lore, put in the comments. I would very much like to see it.
I mean, then look at this then. I can't imagine a more beautiful thing.
Always time for the tree huggers. Forest lineages, Firbolg, delightful, peaceful, best friends with a bush. The Firbolg are distant cousins of giants who, in their early days, spent much of their time calmly walking around the forests of the multiverse. The magic of these forests intertwined with the Firbolg, allowing them to pass through nature undisturbed. Your primary ability is being a tree whisperer. As a Firbolg, plants, animals, and general vegetation can understand your words. You have advantage on any charisma checks to sway them one way or another. However, you don't have an express ability to understand them back unless you want to use a spell for that. You also have the ability Hidden Step, whereby you can automatically turn invisible until your next turn as a bonus action, unless of course you do something like attack somebody. You can use the ability a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and those uses recharge after a long rest. Like most lineages, you get a couple of spells, which going forward I'll just briefly summarize because time. Detect Magic and Disguise Self are your spells. Cast them once per long rest. You also count as one size larger when carrying stuff. Final verdict, I want to give each one a head pat, which might be difficult because they are so big.
That lemur, he's earthbending.
No, you idiot, it's the girl!
Take one of the 4 avatar elements, turn it into a lineage, and you got the Genasi. Each type of Genasi is descended from the genies of a specific elemental plane. So Fire Genasi got the elemental plane of fire, Water Genasi, plane of water, so on and so forth. Each is technically its own separate lineage, but we're covering them all together because most of their traits line up. For example, all Genasi have dark vision. Each Genasi gains some extra spells, like most lineages here. And most gain some type of resistance, so Fire Genasi are resistant to fire damage, Air Genasi lightning, and Water Genasi acid. In fact, the only 2 types of Genasi that have what I would call unique abilities are the Earth and Air Genasi. With Earthwalk, Earth Genasi can move across difficult terrain normally, and with Unending Breath, Air Genasi don't have to breathe, because I guess air is for nerds. And wait, shouldn't Water Genasi also have something breathing related, because their whole thing is like water and like being underwater where breathing could pose an issue? I don't know, they're all some type of elemental peep and I think they're kind of cool. Final verdict, still better than the M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Life is short, but also like terribly and insufferably long at the same time.
These 2 are a bit interesting. So you know how the Mind Flayers did all that awful stuff to the Grey Dwarves? Well, they didn't stop there. Both the Githyanki and the Githzerai used to be one lineage. All of them enslaved to the Mind Flayers. It's the tentacles, man. You can't trust them. They tried rebellion after rebellion and finally got one to work. But then afterwards, they couldn't end up agreeing on like anything, which caused the entire species to fracture into 2 groups that absolutely hate each other. Much like Genasi, they possessed many similarities in their abilities, a lot of which revolve around their psychic abilities that they acquired partially from the Mind Flayers and partially by traveling throughout the multiverse. Both gain a couple spells at certain levels and both have resistance to psychic damage. If you go Githzerai, your mental discipline gives you advantage on saving throws to avoid or end being charmed or frightened. And if you go Githyanki, you have something called Astral Knowledge, which I think is the cooler of the 2 traits based on its flavor text. It says, quote, you can mystically access a reservoir of experiences of entities connected to the astral plane. The end result is you gaining proficiency in another skill and another weapon or tool, which isn't super exciting, but I just like the idea of it. Final verdict, Mind Flayers suck. They're about to have a dinner with the dragon blood.
It's really big.
I've seen bigger.
Really?
Are you joking? It's massive.
They are big, they are large, they are here to bake you a cake. By far one of the tallest lineages, you have the Goliaths. Special trait, a freaking mountain. The first Goliaths lived on the freezing peaks of mountains and unsurprisingly were distant relatives of giants. This harsh, frigid living gave their descendants some extra perks. First of all, they count as one size bigger when carrying, pushing, dragging, or lifting things, large. Second, you are naturally resistant to cold damage and can easily acclimate to higher climates. About to go high-five an Aarakocra like they're shooting a 3-pointer! And finally, there's their Stone's Endurance. Every so often, you can reduce the amount of damage you take from an attack by 1d12. You can do that an amount of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and yes, that does mean you can reduce the amount of damage of an attack to 0, depending on the attack, of course. Final verdict, you versus the person they told you not to worry about.
I'm gonna give you a chance for y'all to lay down your firearms in exchange for preferential, bordering on gentle, possibly even lover-like treatment.
So gnomes, right? You know how they're typically the energetic, chaotic ones? Well, dial that to like an 11 or a 12, and you got the Harengon. Once again, from the Feywild, the Harengon hop, yes, their lore specifically says hop, from one world to another, spreading their Fey exuberance, and probably playing a couple pickup basketball games along the way. Your special trait? Hops? Like, I don't know what else you're expecting. Thanks to your rabbit hop ability, you can jump a number of feet equal to 5 times your proficiency bonus, and you can do that multiple times per day. Additionally, with lucky footwork, if you fail a dexterity saving throw, you can roll a d4 and add that number to your initial roll. Essentially a more balanced version of what halflings have, but with your feetsies. You also get a bonus to your perception skill and can add your proficiency bonus to your initiative rolls, essentially meaning that you're the first one to start combat typically. Final verdict, never skip leg day.
You just triggered my fight or flight response. And I am a flightless bird.
Oh boy, it's time for one of my favorite lineages, the Kenku. Sometimes cryptic, sometimes depressed, typically up to some shenanigans. The Kenku are essentially raven people cursed with eternal flightlessness. All my Aarakocra buddies are putting F's in the chat right now. I love the Kenku for much the same reason that I love Changelings, and that's mostly due to their special trait, mimicry, aka those voice filter effects that you get on TikTok. As a Kenku, you can mimic every sound you've ever heard. Now, this includes voices, yes, but it also includes sounds, like the sound of an explosion, the sound of a cat, the sound of music, whatever. Now, other characters can roll to see if they can figure out that it's a fake, but it is still fun to try. Your replication abilities also cross over to the written word. You have advantage on copying any text, meaning forging signatures and other things. You got a lock on that. Finally, your memory is the size of Kansas. Because of your Kenku recall, you gain proficiency in 2 more skills and can put advantage on rolls for skills you're proficient in. As per usual, you can do this multiple times per day, equal to your proficiency bonus. Final verdict? All hail the walking soundboards.
Maybe depressed, but at least I have an iced coffee.
You're still depressed.
But I have an iced coffee.
Alright, let's talk some fish people. The Locathah are a proud and resilient fish folk that have endured war, slavery, and mistreatment at the hands of other aquatic creatures. Get in line, pal. As a result, they have developed a couple abilities to help with that. First and foremost, their tough, scaly skin offers them natural protection. When not wearing armor, your AC is equal to 12 plus your dexterity modifier. For those uninitiated, your AC, or armor class for short, essentially determines how hard are you to hit. When someone tries to hit you, they have to roll above whatever your AC number is to actually do any damage. So having some natural protection without armor is nice. For reference, wearing leather armor gives you an AC of 11, so this ability can be slightly better than that. Taking off my headphones, it is getting late. Beyond that, their stuff's pretty standard. They got proficiency in the athletics and perception skills. They can breathe air and water, but need to be submerged at least once every 4 hours to avoid, suffocating. Finally, they have a trait called Leviathan Will. Sounds cool, right? That's cause it is. You have advantage on saving throws against every condition under the sun, including being charmed, frightened, paralyzed, poisoned, stunned, or put to sleep. That stuff just doesn't really work well on you. Final verdict, I am very hungry. They haven't let me out of this room in 3 days, and those fish people are looking mighty tasty.
It sparkles and shimmers, it shines and delights. I must have it for my nest.
Owlin time! Distant kin of the giant owls of the Feywild, the Owlin are majestic creatures that fly through the air, bringing their knowledge to other worlds. And by God, is there not a lot to them. They have dark vision, pretty standard. They have the ability to fly, which we've already gone over. And what I would call like their one main unique ability is called Silent Feathers, whereby you have proficiency in using stealth. And that's it. I honestly wish they had something more memory-based, kind of like the Kenku. I mean, like, owl wisdom is a pretty easy thing to go for. But stealth owls? One of the main things they're known for is waking me up at 2 a.m. with their whoo, whoo. And they're good at stealth? I just personally don't see it, but that's the lineage. Final verdict, the Owls of Ga'Hoole deserve better. Side note, if I am ragging on a particular lineage, that is by no means an indication that you shouldn't play them. As always, play whatever you want. If you have fun with it, that's what matters. This is just partially some of my humble opinions thrown into the mix, because I want justice for my owl boys.
What's rule number 1? Party? No.
Alright, back to the good vibes. We have the satyrs. Satyrs are said to thrive on the energy of merriment, each possessing an innate ability to perform, to delight, and to resist magical intrusion. While also simultaneously being the best part of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Professor X be looking a lot different here. Much like gnomes and some halflings, many satyrs are here to have a good time, bringing some light to a world often shrouded in darkness. And their kit definitely embodies this. Thanks to your goat-like legs, you have the Mirthful Leap ability. This is a tweaked version of what the Harengon had, the rabbit people, whereby anytime you make a long or high jump, you can roll a d8, and add that number to the number of feet covered. My party people got mad hops. Thanks to your Fey ancestry, you have advantage on saving throws against all spells. And yes, that is very good, while also being proficient at performance and persuasion and one instrument of your choice. Round 2 rowdy, you need to control alt delete some folks. Use your final ability, ram. You know how Aarakocra have their talons, makes their unarmed attacks a bit stronger. Well, satyrs have that too, but instead they use their horns and they just... The funny thing is, satyr horns actually deal more damage than Aarakocra talons on average. The talons deal 1d4 damage, while satyr horns deal 1d6. Oh yeah, they can be fun. Final verdict? Play that funky music, goat boy. Our second elf variant, this time hailing all the way from the elemental plane of water and all its soggy glory. Next time you step in a puddle of water while wearing socks, thank the elemental plane of water. Sea elves share many similarities with regular elves. You got trance, you got that Fey ancestry, makes it harder to charm you, got that good dark vision, and you're proficient in perception. Where sea elves differ is in their aquatic abilities, which make water Genasi cry themselves to sleep every night. First, they can breathe underwater indefinitely, and get cold resistance thanks to their Child of the Sea trait. They also have Friend of the Sea, which is essentially the water version of Speak with Animals. You have an affinity towards sea creatures and can communicate simple ideas to them. Final verdict, you better start finding Nemo, he's lost again.
Oh, he's so hot and so miserable.
Grey dwarves? Meet Grey elves. These are the Shadar-Kai. Once, Shadar-Kai were Fey, like the rest of their elven kin, until their bodies and souls were corrupted and drawn to the mysterious Raven Queen. Who's the Raven Queen? Great question. We don't necessarily know. It is said that she doesn't possess or manifest a physical form, instead appearing as a miscellaneous group of symbols, perceptions, and images. Picture your average, unknowable, eldritch magical presence that you don't really understand, but you know it can't be anything good, and amplify that to deity levels. That's who we're dealing with here. And now, because of her, the Shadar-Kai were drawn to her native plane, called the Shadowfell, where they will serve her for all eternity. The Shadowfell. How do I talk about the Shadowfell? If you thought the Underdark was depressing, I think that this quote will do a good job. It is the toxic plane of darkness and power. It is the hidden place that hates the light. It is the frontier of worlds unknown. This is where most of the Shadar-Kai call home. It's messed up, but they got some perks because of it, which, if you haven't guessed, is a common theme. You got your standard elf stuff, trance, Fey ancestry, dark vision, and keen senses. Where it gets unique is, 1, you have resistance to necrotic damage. Okay, fair. But 2, your special trait is Blessing of the Raven Queen. The audacity. So remember the Eladrin, their Fey step? Well, Blessing of the Raven Queen is basically that, but it only comes in one flavor, and it is a very good flavor. So as before, you can choose to teleport 30 feet away to an unoccupied location. However, when you teleport, you gain resistance to all damage until the start of your next turn. Not just resistance to weapons and swords, not just resistance to magical damage, all damage gets cut in half until the start of your next turn. And remember, at high enough levels, you can do this multiple times per day. Final verdict, I'm sorry that I was talking smack about the Fae.
Yes, hello. I was supposed to get a delivery of love and affection. Where the fuck is it?
Yo, what if they made that like a person? The Tabaxi. Cats. They are cats. Do they got claws? Hell yeah, they got claws. They gonna scratch you if you don't turn over all your material possessions right now. Those claws of theirs deal 1d4 plus your strength modifier in damage, and give them a climbing speed of 20 feet. Beyond their proficiencies in perception and stealth, they also have feline agility, which is a bit weird. See, because of your being a cat, you get a boost of speed. Essentially, when you move on your turn in combat, you can double your speed until the end of that turn. Once you use this trait though, you can't use it again until you move 0 feet on one of your other turns, which happens more often than you might think depending on the fight. Claws, check. Speed, check. Those cute little ears that bob around as they walk? Check. Have you ever owned a cat and had it scratch you for no apparent reason? Well, now you get to unleash that kind of energy onto the D&D world. Have fun. Final verdict? Don't let the dogs out. These cats are scary.
Houston, not only do we have a problem, I very well might be the problem.
Oh yeah, they added turtles to this game too. Do they got a shell? Hell yeah, they got a shell. Is it slightly busted in its tankiness, especially at low levels? Oh yeah. So the Locathah, right? Remember them? Fish people? They had that natural protection thing, right? Gave them tougher skin after years of enslavement and war, so their starting AC was 12 plus whatever your dexterity modifier is. Well, get this right. A Tortle's shell, which they just kind of make, I guess, gives them a starting AC of 17. This is, of course, prior to adding a shield, which boosts that 17 up to a casual, perfectly normal 19. Oh yeah, you have to roll above a 19 to hit them using a 20-sided die. For reference, chainmail, right? Made by hours upon hours of interlocking metal rings, an extremely sturdy piece of armor gives you an AC of 16. What? So sea elves make the water genasi cry, while turtles make every blacksmith cry. Good, glad we established that. But it doesn't stop there, because why would it? We're just starting to have fun. As an action, you can withdraw into your shell, you know, like normal turtles. This withdraw, otherwise known as shell defense, gives you a nice casual +4 to your AC, or +19, that's just a casual 23 AC, and that's before any type of magical shenanigans. You also get advantage on strength and constitution saving throws when in this state. Why is the Goliath's ability called Stone's Endurance when it would take an ancient red dragon to crack one of these things? Now, of course, you can't move or take actions while you're inside of your shell beyond coming back out of it, but if you're able to trick your enemies into wailing on your shell while the rest of your party wails on them, well, those enemies probably ain't gonna be able to do much. Oh, did I also mention, you also get claws, like the Tabaxi. You can hold your breath for up to an hour, like a watered-down version of the air Genasi, and you get a couple extra proficiencies. Final verdict, somebody over at WotC really likes turtles. I mean, I know they go great in a stew, but chill.
Yes, queen, slay! Slay! Slay your enemies!
And here we have the last aquatic lineage and the second to last lineage overall for today, Triton. While other lineages like the Sea Elves, the Locathah, and Tortle might mingle amongst the seas, the Triton are stalwart defenders of the deep ocean floor. They spend their days building small settlements beside deep trenches, portals to the elemental planes, and other dangerous spots far from the eyes of those above the crashing waves. Most of your abilities as a protector are pretty straightforward. Dark vision, can breathe air and water normally, cold resistance, and a couple extra spells. Your last trait, Emissary of the Sea, is essentially the same as the Sea Elves' Friend of the Sea, where you can communicate simple ideas to sea creatures. Overall, Triton seemed to take some of the better parts of the other sea lineages and kind of put them all together, except for the Tortle shell. We don't need any more of those walking around. Imagine a full party of like Tortle clerics. Oh god, oh god. Final verdict, I hope we get to see them in the new Little Mermaid movie. Here we are, the last of the exotic lineages, and it's kind of got a unique publication history. The Verdan are from a source book released in 2019 called Acquisitions Incorporated, which was made in a partnership between WotC and Penny Arcade Inc. And I believe it was based off of an ongoing campaign called Acquisitions Incorporated, kind of like when Critical Role sort of made their own class called the Blood Hunter. I think I have that right. In terms of lore, the Verdan are descended from goblins and hobgoblins, which we'll cover in part 3. And in their lore, it says they, quote, owe their existence to chaos. It says they were transformed into Verdan by something called the Shadow of That Which Endures. What? From my research, the shadow kind of seems to be sort of like the Raven Queen, a faceless, unknowable god or primordial whose primary focus is on changing order into chaos like a force of nature. And the Verdan are just one of the many results of these efforts, and by God, when I say their abilities are all over the place, just listen. Number 1, they have telepathy. I'm already confused. It's limited, you can only use it on people within 30 feet of you, but a goblin-like being having telepathy? What times we live in. However, their second trait is just as wild. So you know how halflings have that lucky trait where they can re-roll ones? Well, Verdan have something similar called Black Blood Healing. These two traits have completely different energies. With Black Blood Healing, they can re-roll ones and twos, but only on dice used for healing. So it's very specific, but yeah. Then on top of that, they are proficient in persuasion, and they have advantage on all wisdom and charisma saving throws. Final verdict, coherency is for nerds. Congratulations, you did your chaos job, shadow person. And with that, we draw to a close on this episode, my friends. But there is still much more to see. Next episode, get ready, we're going to be talking about some monsters. I'm talking centaurs, orcs, minotaurs, goblins, as well as location-specific lineages, which includes the one and only glorious space slime. But that will have to wait till next week. As always, do the YouTube things if you like this. Have a fantibbity-top-tastic day. This is Korg the Mighty, signing off for A Nerdy Guide to D&D. Wink.